Welcome to the Learn to Judge Beer live stream. Pour yourself a beer and join in as we cover everything from assessing and scoring beer through to identifying and fixing faults.
Good evening, good evening, good evening. How's everyone doing? How are you, Rich?
Yeah, good. Ready for some beer definitely this evening.
Oh, that's good. Can everyone hear us? Can we get a thumbs up or a yes or hoop or something in the chat just so we know you're hearing everything okay?
Typically, my doorbell goes off. Give me 2 seconds.
That's what it was. I was thinking, what on earth's making that noise?
Hey, Ross, can you get it, Mum in?
Oh, yep, right, good. Nice to see you, James. Nice to see you, David. Good of you to join us. So, tonight's beer, the Rodenbach Grand Cru. This is an all-time classic, and it's the first time, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure I'm not. I think it's the first time we've done a mixed firm beer on here, isn't it?
I think so. Did we do one of the supermarket ones? 1 second.
Okay, no problem. So I don't remember if we did do a supermarket one or not, but anyway, let's just open the beer. Let Rich sort his door out. We'll get into the beer whilst he does that. Oh, he's back again.
I'm back.
Welcome back.
Reminding the children actually answer the door.
Yeah, it's an uphill battle even when it's for them.
Yeah. Anyway, beer. Yeah. So yeah, did we do one of the supermarket fruit things, or did we not do that last time?
I can't remember now, to be honest. I could be wrong, but I don't think so. So let's...
We certainly talked about it. We may have rejected on the principle that most of them are not very nice.
Could well be, actually, yeah. Right, so... Yeah, you're probably not seeing that very well. Let's hit that and see if that... No. Focus button's not working. That's helpful. So yeah, what I'm seeing straight away, gorgeous colour, finger of head. Let's get the nose in there. All right, come on, talk to me, people. What are you getting before I just start talking about this beer without even thinking about it? Aroma, 12 points, malt, hops, esters and other aromatics. Tell me what you're smelling from this beer. There's a couple of very distinct smells that I'm getting. Let's see if anyone can find them.
So the style guide says we should be getting complex fruity sour profile with supporting malt. Fruitiness is high and reminiscent of black cherries, oranges, plums, red currants and fruit leather. Low to medium low vanilla, chocolate or peppery phenol can be present with complexity. Sour aroma ranges from moderate to high. A dominant vinegary character inappropriate, though low to moderate levels of acetic acid are acceptable if balanced by malt. No hop aroma.
Head didn't last long, says Richard, which is true. It didn't. So yeah, mine's all but gone. It's straight down to a ring around the edge.
Yeah, I've got a little bit more attention. It's a ring and film really. So
And
David saying something like a good balsamic vinegar.
Smell.
Yeah, definitely vanilla. Vanilla is an interesting one.
Balsamic from Steve and the same from David. Both of them picking on balsamic. That's the first thing that hit me. It did hit me like a balsamic.
Yeah, I tended to go a bit more in the fruit direction. I like James's cherries, raspberries, and blackcurrant. Fruity acidic smell. Love the balsamic. I'm assuming descriptor. Yeah, I was more red currant than blackcurrant, but yeah, I get where that's going.
Let me just zoom out a bit. That's better. All right. Yeah.
Yeah, David saying it's not as sweet as balsamic.
This is true.
Yeah. Is a good one. Yeah, it depends on your balsamic a bit. Some of them they sort of vary quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean the one I normally use on salads and that isn't that sweet, but thinking about it, I have had some that really are. So yeah, I can understand that.
I might head more towards some of the sort of fruit vinegars and things. Or maybe take some of these fruits, sort of raspberry vinegar or something like that.
Yeah, that could work as well.
What's everyone getting around the malt?
So we've got a bit of malt aroma after swirling it around. Do you think you can try and narrow in a bit on what sort of malt? And again, what was the expectation?
It's looking for sort of supporting malt level. It's not got very much description of what.
There is. I'm struggling to get much by way of a descriptor for the malt, but it's always good to look for it and then just turn around and say, yeah, no, I'm not getting it. I know it's got some malt, but I can't tell you much about it.
Yeah, I'm probably getting something that's sort of almost a little bit brown bready, but it's really low and it's a bit behind the rest of things.
Okay. Yeah, people think I like that description actually. A little bit brown bready.
Yeah.
Let's try retronasal.
I've got. I can see the some of the yeast derived ones as well. The vanilla descriptor someone gave before is quite good, and I'm definitely getting a little bit of pepperiness.
Yep.
Sort of later on in the aroma.
Yeah, that acidic tang on the nose is starting to fade a little. Either that or I'm just getting used to it more in my nose. It doesn't seem quite as prominent as it did when I first opened it. James is struggling to describe the malt. There's some dark, funky sugar thing, maybe in the directions of molasses that's fermenting.
Yeah, I don't often go around sniffing fermenting molasses, but yeah, I can sort of imagine where you're going with that.
Yeah, there is something right on the back end there that I think that might be where James is going with that one.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's certainly focused around acidity and fruit.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, they've definitely got some of those descriptions. I'm not sure I can get. I'll definitely go with some cherries. We've had raspberries definitely. There's a little more tart raspberry. Yeah. And yeah, I feel more red currant and blackcurrant. And blackcurrant is fairly reasonable as well.
Steve is Steve was getting a caramelly malt sort of vibe. That might be what James.
Yeah, I could go with a little bit of carameliness.
Yeah, that might be where James was getting the molasses type thing from as well. David says retronasally a little bit malt, more like a sourdough, but that could be the acidity. It's always difficult when you've got acidity mixed in with things to know exactly how it's impacting the other flavours. This is one of the reasons I normally let judges who are more experienced with the beers like this do this type of beer, and I'll stick to the maltier ones. Definite moderate dark berry cherry notes and a sweet acidity. Yep, sounds good.
David's making a good point there about temperature. I think I agree. I think mine may be a little cold as well, so I'm doing hold the glass and just trying to get a bit of temperature into it.
Where are we? There we are. If you show them again, because it was off the camera.
Just hold it up with both hands and just try and get some of your body heat into it. It'll take a little bit of the cold off it fairly quickly.
Yeah, so what sort of temperature was yours kept at? Was that normal fridge temp or?
I think it's 4.
Okay, yeah.
I've got even my beer fridge has my beer's bottle storage fridge has an input on it.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, mine's been at 9, so it's probably just about getting up to temperature now.
Yeah.
Okay, so what else was there? So one of the first words it uses in the style guide is complex. So would people agree this is complex? It's got all these things going on, or is it a more simple beer? No hop aroma, says James. Yep. Or if there is, I'm not getting it over everything else, put it that way.
Considering how they make these, I suppose you could dry hop a Flemish red, but it'd be a bit weird.
Will it brew? Flanders Red, dry hop with Citra.
Yeah.
David's was at 5 degrees, a bit colder than it would be in Belgium. Oh, and I missed that one by James. Style Guide says low level peppery. I could go for that. Black or long pepper in long level. Yeah. First time I ever had long pepper was thanks to Lee Immins in one of his beers. And then he was handing out the real thing and at the competition, and everyone's just making a mistake of biting into it and chomping on a bit of long pepper and not tasting much for the next 10 minutes.
Oh yeah. So it's always a good way forward. It's just try and eat something that completely destroys your taste buds while doing a beer event.
Yeah, I mean, which one was it I went to? I went to one. Might have been one of the UK Nationals, and every single one of the lunch sandwich options had mustard and sauerkraut.
Yeah, the Bristol, when they do the sandwiches there, they often are quite potent.
Yeah.
Well, it was one of the brew cons that someone decided to eat it was something like Spectrum or one of the other hop concentrates.
Wasn't that?
I just couldn't taste for the rest of the afternoon.
Someone did that at BrewCon Leeds as well. Will from Beth Haas was there with a 5-litre thing of one of the CO2 extracts, and someone's like, "Oh, let's just try it," and they didn't taste nothing for the rest of the day. Right. Okay. So.
Give you some scores.
Sorry. Give us a score.
Can we do some scores?
Yeah. Scores that for aroma then. 12 points. How does it tally with the style guide? If you think it hits all the notes, it's 12. If it's missing out on some of them, drop it down a little bit. So let me just make my own. This is high. Black cherries, orange plums, red currants, or fruit leather. Low to medium.
Yeah, so I'm still thinking about, is there anything here that doesn't match up with the description? Anything missing?
Yeah.
So yeah, James going with an 11. The acetic being a little higher than moderate, but otherwise lovely.
Yeah, sorry, I was miles away then, just reading the style guide again. But yeah, there's his comment on the screen.
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting one of what the balance of sourness is, how much of it is acetic and how much is lactic. I mean, there is a little bit of that lemony, almost yogurty, lactic thing, but the majority of the sourness to me is mostly acetic, in the aroma at least.
Yeah, I'll go with that. David finds it hard to remove a point. It's a 12 for him. Could be harsh and take one off for the missing malt, but I think it's there but unobtrusive. Okay, so that's James, that's David. Any thoughts, Steve? By all means, bung us a score in if you got one. For me, I think the acetic vinegary type character was a little too dominant when first pouring. It has mellowed off though, but because of that, for me, I think it would be a 10 because it's clearly described as inappropriate, but I was definitely getting that when I first poured. What do you think, Rich?
Yeah, I'm bouncing between 10 and 11 just because there's a little bit, the balance of the acetic is a little high, and it isn't balanced with malt. So I'll probably go with 10 as well.
Yeah, if you and Steve's 11, Richard was 10 because of the sour vinegar thing. I think if you're 10, 11, you're doing great there. I think 12 might be a little generous. But then again, it all depends how dominant, how balanced it was. I think we've all got them from the same source, so we shouldn't have too much bottle variation, but you never know. Okay, appearance then. Let's move on. 3 points for appearance. We're talking about the colour of the beer, the clarity, the head. And when we talk about the head, it's the retention, the colour, and the texture. So yeah, it's one of those beers where as soon as I look at it, I want to just start saying words, and it's hard to just stop myself.
Mine's very noticeably, it started off when I poured it at 4 degrees with a distinct chill haze, that now I've warmed it up has completely disappeared.
Okay.
So it's definitely worth keeping an eye on the temperature for things like that as well.
Yeah. So according to the style guide, what we're looking for is a deep red, burgundy to reddish brown in colour, with good clarity, a white to very pale tan head, an average to good head retention. So you have a think about your descriptors for this beer and see what you think. Let us know. James says it's hard to mark down a beer he loves so much. Yeah, it's something it took me a while to get to as a judge, because immediately it's like, oh, this is a gorgeous beer, it's got to score highly. But sometimes it might be absolutely gorgeous but not quite hitting the mark on what it's supposed to be for the style you're judging against.
Yeah, I used to drink far too much of this when I could afford it. What was it that used to be about? It used to be about somewhere really bizarre, like the wine bit of Selfridges. But obviously, if it was available in somewhere like in Selfridges, it's not exactly cheap.
Yeah. David Farron's haze has gone to, was very murky on the first pour. So yeah, I think he said his was at 5 degrees. So yeah, definite chill haze going on there. Richard straight in with a full 3 points for appearance. It ticks all the boxes. And just wait for it to refresh. James is saying there's a deep red to chestnut beer. Brilliant clarity, though quite dark to see through. Off-white head that's hanging around with good lacing.
Yeah.
Some nice descriptions there. And David's in then. Pale tan loose head that didn't last and is now a halo. Deep ruby red with a little chill haze at the start, but clears as it warms up. A 2 for me, head should last a bit longer. I mean, oh, go on, Rich, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, I'm usually with Homebrew, I'm fairly generous about head retention, like I am with haze, especially since this is a 3.1. Yeah, I mean, for a commercial example, yeah, maybe a little bit more head retention would be nice, but it has been sat there for 15 minutes already.
Yeah, I mean, for me, Homebrew, it would probably be a 3. Commercial, I'll probably go with David and give it a 2. That head faded within seconds for me. But yeah, I think 2, 3, you're doing fine. I don't imagine anyone should score it less than that.
That usually it looks like soup, and the head doesn't even appear when you pour it vigorously.
Yeah, it's very rare that I ever score anything less than 2, to be honest. It's got to be very bad. Like, if you got something that's supposed to be brilliantly clear, a nice big head with good retention, and it's flat black and opaque, then yeah.
Yeah, or if it's been blatantly entered in the wrong category, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, flavour then. We're talking about the malt, the hops, the fermentation characteristics, balance, finish aftertaste, and any other flavour characteristics. And again, I'll just remind you, we're talking about, so for malt, we're talking about what type of malt is it, how intense is it. So, I mean, obviously it doesn't apply to this beer, but the sort of descriptors you'll normally be seeing is like a moderate grainy malt with light bread crust notes, things like that. You're
so
trying to make the... Sorry?
The description for this beer does have some malt in there. It's expecting moderate to moderately high malty flavours, often with a soft, toasty, rich quality.
There you go. Let me just scroll down a bit. So there you go, flavours on the screen. Intense fruit flavours, which are the same descriptors as the aroma. Complex moderate to high sourness. And again, it's calling for complex sourness here. So it shouldn't just be one-sided. It should be accentuated by the esters. Should not be a simple lactic sourness. Dominant vinegary character is inappropriate, although low to moderate acetic acid is acceptable if balanced with the malt. Generally, as the sour character increases, the malt character fades to more of a background flavour and vice versa. Low to medium-low vanilla, chocolate or peppery phenols optional. No hop flavour. Restrained bitterness, balanced to the malt side. Acids and tannins can enhance the perception of bitterness and provide balance and structure. Some versions are sweetened or blended to be sweet, so allow for a wide range of sweetness levels, which can soften the acidic bite and acetic perception. And that was a long mouthful, so I need a mouthful.
So what's everybody getting? David's mentioned that, yeah, the malt for him has become more pronounced now it's warmed up. Yeah, it's definitely worth allowing the temperature to come up a bit. Principally for aroma, but it does also impact flavour quite a lot. The two are quite closely related, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to judging beer, ideally I like to try and do it around 11, unless it's something like a lager, which would traditionally be done cooler if possible. Some competitions you end up drinking everything at 20C. So your mileage may vary on that score.
Yeah, usually all the beers are the same temperature, whatever that temperature might be.
Mm. Yeah, it's like, that's what's been nice about these inter-club competition things, when you've been judging that, because you can keep the beer properly and at the right temperature for you to judge that beer, if that makes sense. So
Interesting call there from James on citric at the front. Yeah, so there's a sort of general fruit acid thing going on. So I was thinking that was more in the acetic area, but yeah, citric is an interesting call. So yeah, moderate acetic like fruit vinegar, sweet toasted bread maltiness like brioche bun at moderate levels, particularly in the finish. Then again, dark cherry sultana and like blackberry. Yeah, blackberry's a nice call. That was the direction I was thinking in as well. Carrying on with the currants as well for me. Well, what does everyone else think? So from Steve, yeah, sour dark cherries, almost a wine-like aftertaste with a fruity vinaigrette finish. Yeah, the wine-like is always an interesting one with these because once again, wine covers a wide range of things. The colour tends to be suggesting towards something sort of French and red. While there's some sort of similar processes, it's not really the same. Who else we got here? Yeah, David with toasted white bread, malt and balsamic vinegars, delightful bittersweet first sip, dark berry and stone fruits dominate the palate with a tangy finish.
So I was just looking for the ingredients on the bottle. They don't appear to have them.
Yeah.
So much fruit. I didn't know whether there was fruit additions or not, so I was just having a look.
Sure there isn't, especially not in this one.
I didn't think so, but it's like, let's just have a quick look and see, but they don't say, so I'm pretty sure not, but it's like so fruity. It really is. Right, where were we? Also getting orange and lemon, sort of presents as marmalade with the sweetness from James.
Yeah, I could definitely go with the marmalade thing. There's a little bit of oranginess to it, and you think in that direction. And yeah, the lemon, I think that's sort of extending the citric note you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, I mean it is. I like marmalade as a descriptor for it. There's definitely some of that going on in it.
Yeah.
And David's still getting a low level of vanilla and some black pepper. And again, yes, I can agree with that.
So what do people think about the levels of the malt flavours here? We've had a couple of descriptors, but not an awful lot of levels.
Yeah, low, medium, high is the normal sort of language. If you want to, you can get away with light, moderate, intense. And what you'll find in the style guide is a lot of times, to stop things sounding very repetitive, they use other words that effectively have the same meaning. They're just a synonym.
So yeah, David asks, is it barrel aged? It's aged in fooders, which are the massive room-sized vertical barrels. The Grand Cru is 100% the beer from the fooders. The normal Rodenbach is blended back with some younger beer that makes it into a sort of slightly less acidic.
And Steve's in, he's getting a low level of malt now.
Yeah, I like the we had a bit earlier, the sort of toasted white bread as a description of the malt. I might go with one of those sort of cheap brown breads, but yeah, I sort of kind of get where you're going. One of those 50/50s.
Yeah, yeah. It's certainly not a granary for me, but it could well be a cheap brown. That sounds good.
At the I also agree, probably at the low level.
Yeah. Yeah, it's certainly not hitting you in the face with malt, is it? Okay.
Okay, shall we start thinking about some scores on this one?
That sounds good. So, again, flavour was 20 points. So how does it compare to that style guide, which I will put up on the screen for you because I am not reading it all out again. Okay. Because that is probably one of the longer flavour descriptions in the entire style guide.
It's good with this version. They are, as much as they do change the language around a little bit, they're an awful lot more consistent than they used to be. And use the same sort of language and the same sort of words in the same sort of order, which does make it much easier to understand what they're trying to say. Well, yeah, an interesting one there. David said that the mention of wine is a good shout. The tannins from a Rioja. Yeah, once again, I'll give you a little bit of tannin there, but which is probably from the wood. But yeah, once again, it's a low level, I think, for me.
Okay.
Okay.
Just working out my score. I'm actually trying to keep track of them this time, just to see if my ballpark figure at the end does tally with what I thought.
I always, about when we get on the second score, go, I need to grab a piece of paper from over here and start writing this down.
Yeah, I was just like, yeah, I can remember the first two, but it's getting tough now. I better pull up the notepad.
Yeah.
All right. So again, what I tend to do is just read through it and tick them off in my mind as I'm doing it. So it's like, it says moderate to moderately high malty flavors. I think, has it got that? Is it missing that? And then as I work through, I'm like, is there anything it's got that hasn't been mentioned? Or is there anything totally missing?
So yeah, this is on the list of classic examples. I was just double checking that. I think I know most of the ones that's on that list. So we've got Cuvée de Jacobin, Duchess, La Folie, the classic, and the Grand Cru. I don't know Vichenar.
No, I've never had that one.
No,
I've not had the Cuvée de Jacobin either.
I think
Duchess, yeah, the La Folie.
Yeah.
I mean,
has a list of really nice beers.
It is. The classic and the Grand Cru are a fair bit different. They're like different ends of the descriptors, I think. Okay, so we've got
so
some
a couple of
scores in.
scores in. Steve's in with a 17, not getting much malt. David's also a 17. Malt is in there as much. I think it should. The acidity is probably a bit more than style. James is on a 16. Malts could be a little higher. The flavour has punch. The complexity and character sort of fades away.
My palate may be wrecked after the first few sips. Yeah, when I put the reminder out on Twitter earlier, that it was like an hour until Grand Cru, someone's in like, I absolutely love that beer, but my throat is wrecked after a couple. David looked up the website and it says a connoisseur's beer, a specialist beer aimed more at experts to aid relaxation or as a personal treat.
Well, I don't think it's the drink sort of six-pack off while watching the football.
I'm sure there's some people that would, given the chance. Don't get me wrong, but yeah, it's not your normal fridge filler. And 16 for Richard. Similar comments to David and James. That last sentence is all beer, isn't it? To aid relaxation or as a personal treat. Yeah, I mean, some of them. I mean, I'm not above having macro lager in the fridge just to aid refreshment or hydrate, should we say, rather than sip and enjoy. But yeah, I know what you mean. Okay, what's your thoughts, Richard? You got a score for this one?
I'm more or less agreeing with the everyone who said before. The malt is quite low, and the acidity is sort of balanced towards the acetic without that malt there to balance it out. But once again, it's off by a bit, but not massively. So I think I'm on a 17. I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I was 16, so very similar. So yeah, if you're 16, 17, I think you're doing just great. So James says this is the sort of style where the bigger names put out some wonderful special editions. Well worth picking them up if you see them. And it's true. A lot of brewers don't often get chance to play in this space. Because their brewery tends to like the more commercialized beer. So when they get a chance to do it as a special, they really push the boat out on it normally.
It's also quite a fun one to brew yourself. If you've got somewhere where you can lose the beer for a year or two.
Yeah.
I used to, I've made this a couple of times, I used to put them in a plastic bucket wrapped in bin bags underneath the rest of my brewing equipment in the shed. There's a lot of stuff around oxygen ingress and things when you're brewing these for the long-term storage. But I found, wrapping a fermenter in loads of bin bags gave enough plastic to make enough of a barrier.
Nice.
I'm not leaving one of my metal fermenters for a year or more. And I don't have a fooder.
No, neither do I. I did do a Cherry Lambic, the 1 year which won the UK. That was turned around very quickly, but only because of the blend of microbes I used.
Yeah.
So that used the East Bay Melange, and it was 10 weeks from brewing to judging, but you ain't going to get that with a normal culture, shall we say. Okay, on to mouthfeel then. For 5 points, we're talking about the body, the carbonation, warmth, creaminess, astringency, and any other palate sensations. Any other palate sensations when you're talking about a mixed firm beer that has acidity will also include some mention of the acidity. So
in this case, our mouthfeel is saying medium body, often enhanced by tannins. Low to medium carb, low to medium astringency, often with prickly acidity, deceivingly light and crisp on the palate, though a somewhat sweet finish is not uncommon.
Nice short one there.
Yeah, after the epic of the flavour.
War and Peace for the flavour, wasn't it? I mean, it always reminds me. I haven't checked the Imperial Stout in 2021 style guide yet. I really should. But it was always a very long one that basically said anything goes.
Yeah, so long as it's dark.
Yeah. So David, straight in. Medium body with low medium carbonation. The acidity makes the astringency hard to detect, or makes astringency hard to detect, but I don't think it's there. Very crisp and refreshing. Makes the mouth water like a fat tang fastic. I thought he was going to say opal fruit then or something, because wasn't that their motto back in the day, made to make your mouth water?
Yeah, I think it was opal fruit, or was it
Starburst they changed into, wasn't it, or something?
Yeah, I was trying to remember which was the original name.
Yeah. So yeah, some good shouts there. The acidity.
We need to remember with all of these that we have had this beer sat on the table for the last half hour.
Yeah.
So its carbonation will have dropped a bit. But even when it was poured originally, I still think medium is probably where I'd be.
We're at that point where I normally neck the one and open the second one now to try that. So let's give it a go.
So yeah, these are 6%, so only mildly dangerous.
Yeah, I doubt I'll be doing well next week. The Impy's only a 300ml, isn't it? So that's not so bad.
So from Steve, we've got light and crisp once you get past the mouth puckering acidity, medium to moderate carbonation. From James, a lovely creamy feel on the tongue, medium body, low carb, but acetic picks up where the carbonic lacks, medium astringency with slight prickliness on the back of the tongue. Yeah, I think I agree there's a certain amount of astringency there, sort of tannins rather than anything else.
Medium is where it's at. It's not high, it's not low.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's definitely a interplay with the acetic and carbonic acids, which is quite interesting.
Yeah. So, in case people don't know, the carbonic acid is from the CO2 in suspension, and that's what's known as the carbonic acid. If you get something that's very highly carbonated, you can have quite a serious carbonic bite on it at times. So yeah, we've had David, Steve and James all talk about the mouthfeel. So yeah, think about your scores. For me, yes, it's medium. Tannins, I think there's a little bit there, but the interplay with the acidity makes it hard to put a level on. Low to medium carbonation, I'd say it's coming in at medium. Low to medium astringency, there is some there, but as has already been mentioned, behind the acidity, it's hard to put a level on it as well. Often with a prickly acidity, and yes, we're getting some of that. Deceivingly light and crisp on the palate, although somewhat sweet finish is not uncommon. I mean, for me, I'm finding it hard to fault that. It's got everything it should have. I'm not really getting anything it shouldn't have. So, I mean, for me, I think it would be a 5.
Yeah, I think I might go for a 4 because I think the astringency is really very low, not low, but that's about the only place I'd go for in that. So yeah, Steve and Darren have both gone for 4s and James a 5. They're both perfectly reasonable, I think.
Yeah. Nothing wrong with any of those scores. So, where's that leave us? That leaves us on to the fun part. Overall impression. So this is where you get to wax lyrical or not, describe the overall drinking pleasure, and give suggestions for improvement. So
Which is always an interesting one when it is one of the classics.
Yeah. So all the things we've been talking about should get a mention here as a point for improvement. If you've knocked more than a couple of points off, you should always definitely have improvements that can be made. Richard Martin's come in with a 5 for mouthfeel. Meets the guide.
Okay, so thoughts on the overall impression? These are always quite tricky to come up with some feedback on these, because with the mixed firm beers, because there's a lot more steps to the process, there's a lot more variables that could be different in how the brewer has made the beer. So you're even more sort of hypothesizing what they've done.
And hedging your bets and
Yeah.
never assuming process. I mean, for this one, we know it is mixed firm, aged in foeders. So, I mean, we do know a bit about the process, which we wouldn't know if it was a homebrew. So, I mean, in comments for this, which I'll just cover whilst we're thinking of the overall impression, it says that the wine-like observation should not be taken too literally. It may suggest a high-acid French Burgundy to some, but it is clearly not identical. Produced by long aging, up to 2 years in large wooden vats, foeders, blending of young and well-aged beer, and variable amounts of sweetening of the final product. A wide range of products are possible depending on the actual blend and whether any sweetening takes place. Acetic flavours may be noted, but not all acidity in this beer is from acetic acid. Vinegar is over 6 times greater in total acidity than this style. Fruited version should be entered as a 29A fruit beer. I was pretty sure it wasn't, hence the Grand Cru, but yeah, it's still so fruity, isn't it?
But David suggests he loves this beer, and if it would be feasible, he would want the recipe, failing that, to do a brewery tour with as many samples as he could get.
Yeah, I do miss brewery tours. I don't know if anyone saw it the other day, but there's been a couple of YouTube videos released in the past few weeks inside of Saison Dupont, where about brewing the beer that we did in the first episode. So look them up if you're interested, because they were quite good. James.
We got an 8 from James. Yeah, a very technically impressive beer, well balanced, pleasant to drink in a challenging style. Yeah, that's the good call. Would benefit from a little more complexity, maybe more age if in wood, maybe retire and replace. I would suggest, yeah, more time in its food is sort of smaller barrels. And David's up with a 9. So you want to. You probably need with that need to probably call out what room for improvement to get that extra point, even though it is only 1 point.
Yeah, but it's also where you've also knocked it down.
Yeah.
So if at any other point you've said, "Oh yeah, I'll give it a 8 instead of a 10," this is where you explain that on the score sheet with what the beer was missing and a suggestion for how to get that in future.
I don't understand.
And that suggestion may not always be change the beer. Sometimes the best suggestion you can make is change the style you've entered it as. The brewery tour would make it a 10.
Yeah, it's surprising how often you get beers in which are quite wildly miscategorized. And in the tasting exam, obviously, there usually is one that's purposefully miscategorized. Though I have known people to play tricks on people and not do the expected ones, but that's a bit mean usually.
Yeah, I mean, we did have one once where it was like just put in the wrong one of the 3 bitter categories, which was a bit.
That's harsh. That's very harsh. Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, no one can really tell the difference between 4.6 and 5.2 or whatever it is.
It might just be detectable from ordinary bitter to sort of BSB or strong bitter.
Yeah.
Just about, but it's still a bit harsh.
Yeah. The other one is there's normally one that's deliberately tampered with in some way, some fault introduced.
I always miss that, or it makes the beer better.
Yeah.
What was it? The first exam I did, it was some very boring English bitter with some lactic acid added. It was nicer.
Was that
added some complexity to the beer?
Was that the Bristol exam?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I was on that one. That certainly sounds familiar.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't normally get this style in an exam, but I think
it would be rare.
It is allowed.
Yeah. I mean, the one I ran, the exam I ran, we had a lambic in it because I brewed one. It wasn't a very good lambic. That was fine.
Perfect for an exam.
I wanted to get rid of it. That's the main point.
The more that's wrong with the beer, the better it is for an exam because there's more for people to talk about, to be honest.
I think it was my lambic we had in that. We certainly had a sour, and you don't often get them, which means the proctors were going, "Are you sure you're allowed to put this in?" I read the rules very carefully.
Yeah, I mean, normally you don't get it, but there's nothing in the rules saying you wouldn't, if that makes sense. 8 for Richard. Said earlier, needs a bit more malty flavour, a bit less acidic. And David's only knocked a few points off. The malt character was a little too subtle for the style. Acidity levels are probably at the upper limit, which will likely divide opinions. Okay, so for me, very enjoyable beer, light and refreshing. It's probably around a 9 for me. The overall impression, it's supposed to be a sour and fruity, oak-aged, reddish brown, Belgian-style ale with supportive, toasty malt flavours and fruit complexity. Though the only thing that's really a bit low for me is the supportive, toasty malt flavours. That's why it's a 9 instead of a 10 for me. Would I like the recipe? Yes, please. Would I drink more of it? Yes, very much so. Points for improvement, a bit more malt, so increase the malt and the aroma especially, not so far off in the flavour, and maybe just rein in the acidity a bit at the start, because at the very start of the bottle the acidity is a bit too pronounced for me.
Yeah, I think I ended up with an 8, and I think I'll be talking a bit around the balance of malts and acetic. So I'll either drop the acetic or bring the malt up, probably a bit of both. But also be talking a little bit around maybe more time with the wood to get a bit more tannin in there. Because I knocked a point off in the previous section for not having any astringency in there.
So Steve's just lacking the malt, so a 9 for him. Richard thinks his total was 42. So, final scores on the doors. Where does the beer fit for you? Out of 50 points, what did you get?
So far we've had a 43 and a 42.
43 overall.
Don't say, I think it's 43 overall. That's about right. It's solid, not the best in the style. That said, it's easy to get and not your everyday boring brown beer. Yeah, it's definitely not your everyday boring brown beer.
Yeah.
David's coming at 44. Upper end of excellent feels right. Yeah, that's the sort of region, perhaps.
Yeah, I mean,
my maths here.
Sorry?
On Sarah, I'm doing my maths.
Okay. I totaled up to 42, which is up towards the top end of excellent. At this point, I'll probably say that might feel a little bit harsh. So 42, 43. I might fudge one of the other figures by one number. I don't think it deserves going into 45, though, because there was those couple of bits that I didn't feel was a good example of the style. Yeah,
I ended up in exactly the same place at 42. I think it feels about right for me with a few little things for improvement. Maybe one more, but it feels like it's about the right place.
Don't forget, in the exam, the normal expectation is that you're definitely within 7 points. Otherwise, you lose all the marks for scoring accuracy. The closer you are, the better you score. 42, 43, around that area, I think you bang on the money. And even at 44 from David, you're certainly not far off what would have been a consensus score from the proctors in this case.
And if you're judging in a competition, we're all so far within scoring margin of each other. Steve coming in with a 40 is a bit lower, but even that, if you're judging pairs, Steve and David, 40 and 44 are both fine scores. They're close enough that you just put them down and probably take consensus at 42.
Yeah. Steve was 40 with a quick recap. So there you go. What do people think of that beer? Was that a nice change from the ones we've been doing before. Did people enjoy it?
We're certainly going for quite a good variety this time. We've had quite a few different styles, and I think we're going somewhere very different next time.
Yeah. So next time is the Hercule Stout. Dan from Worcester is going to be joining us for that one. Then we're taking a week off, and then we're back for the last beer, which was the Angel Celebrator. That will be on the 24th, 25th.
Something like that.
Yeah, 25th. So next week, Impy Stout, a week off, and then Doppelbock. Steve says the Duchess is one of his faves, and yeah, I totally agree. When we picked the beer styles we wanted to cover, it was either going to be Duchess or this one. This is what Beer Moth came back with that they had or could get for us easily. Because, I mean, we asked them to keep, to make sure they could do up to 30 boxes, I think it was. So it was something that they had to be saying they knew they could get in some quantity, but shift if we didn't shift all the boxes.
Yeah, I think we did shift most of them. I think when I spoke to them last, about 25 went out.
Nice. Yeah, I know this time round a lot of people have been playing catch up instead of turning up live. I've had a couple of people asking questions in post show, just chatting to me either on YouTube or Facebook or whatever about it, because unfortunately the timing just didn't work well for some people this time. Richard comes in with, considering it wasn't something I would have chosen, I enjoyed it. I wouldn't want many of them in an evening though, and it's true. Yeah. It's not a sort of session beer really. You want to, I mean, if you go to sort of a classic or sours beer festival, eventually you just have this strong desire to go and find something hoppy. Yeah, hence I did bring up a Jaipur just to refresh the old taste buds if I needed it. But to be fair, it was less acidic than I remembered it.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe if my palate's got more used to it. Maybe.
David, there's a little bit of me that would like to try something commercially that had a few consistent faults for one of these sessions. Well, I can think of a couple of breweries that we might be able to do at some time. It's just that I don't know the availability of them. For instance, if we did a Bath Ales or an Innis and Gun, then Innis and Gun you can pick up in supermarket. Bath Ales you're going to struggle to get most places.
But I could probably do your false list on Innis and Gun without having tasted one for a very long time. Too much oak.
They may have improved. I haven't tasted one for a very long time. David was thinking of an Innis and Gun. There we go. But yeah, it was from memory, I think it was diacetyl every single beer.
Actually, yeah. Now I think about it, I think you're right.
Yeah, and I had much the same trouble with some of the Bath Ale stuff. So I mean that's a possibility one time. We've limited it to 6 episodes this season, so perhaps it's something we can think of for next season. Put a bit more planning in advance and see if we can get some faulty ones, shall we say.
Problem is the brewers don't want to give people those ones. They want the nice ones. Most of you either go in the supermarket again, or they don't stay in the shops for very long.
Yeah. So the best Innis and Gun Steve Cole ever had was an Innis and None. I don't know if I've ever had that one. So yeah, but no, I enjoyed that. Like I say, it was less acidic than I remember it.
Yeah. I did. But same here. I remember it being quite aggressive, but as I say, probably my taste buds changing as much as the beer.
There's nothing Richard's come in with. I'm sure it's heresy, but he likes Bath, Jeff. Nothing wrong with that. People like different things. Some people actually enjoy what other people consider off flavours. I was told a story once that a beer judge had come over to judge at one of the competitions, and they went out for a beer afterwards, and they're sat in the pub, and he's drinking a Bath Gem, and he's just sat there taking a mouthful and laughing. And it turned out that he's never had so much diacetyl in his life, but he quite liked it. So there you go. All right, well, let's wrap that up then, and we will see you same time next week for the Impy Stout. And one last reminder, the week after that, we're taking a week off so Richard can go and get refreshed and have a break. And then we're back for the last one, okay?
Oh, well, refreshed, as much refreshed and a break as you can when you take the kids on holiday.
Oh, right, yeah, so you're not having much refreshment then. All right, well, thanks for joining us, everyone, and we'll see you next week.
Remember to hit that like button and subscribe. Thanks for watching Daft Cat Brewing.